Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today I'll be showing you how to remove the factory exhaust on my Mk6 Volkswagen GTI. I will not be showing an installation video as it is in reverse order, and I'm also putting on an aftermarket exhaust system, and every system is a little bit different. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so go ahead and disconnect the oxygen sensor. It's going to be this connector right here in the engine bay. You're going to disconnect this, release it from that clip right there, and also that clip right there. And then you're just going to drop down the catalytic converter with the sensor in it. So you just want to wiggle this up right here, and then disconnect right here and pull this connector off. And then take your miniature 90-degree pick and you just stick it right behind this little lip, and you just lift it up until it comes over like that. And then you'll just pull out the wire. And then on this one right here, you're just going to lift it up and pop it out of that metal bracket. Now, looking at the passenger side underbody shield, there's going to be 4 plastic nuts, and they're 10 millimeters. So you just take your 10 millimeter socket and zip those off. And what that'll do is that'll let this hang so that you can disconnect the sensor right there for the post catalytic converter sensor. So looking at the connector, there's going to be another little metal bracket right here. Just pop that out. And then there's a stud coming from the body. You just want to wiggle the bracket back and forth and it'll come off. And then from there, you just wiggle the connector out and disconnect it. Now, from the factory, you're going to have 2 brackets. In this case, I have an aftermarket one. It's a single piece, but you're going to have a bracket right here and a bracket right here. You're going to need to remove those. It's 13 millimeter nuts, and there's going to be a total of 8 of them. So at the second oxygen sensor, what I like to do is I like to take my 22 millimeter wrench, and I'll take a rubber or a dead blow hammer, and I'll hit it lefty-loosey or counterclockwise. The reason for this is it takes a little bit of effort. Sometimes they're very rusted and they don't want to come loose very good. And now that it's loose, go ahead and take it out. And once it's out, you want to lay it towards the back of the car. That way you know this one goes in the back of the exhaust system. That way you don't get them mixed up. Next, you're going to want to go under the engine and look up towards the back. You're going to see the passenger's CV axle, and then there's going to be this heat shield right here. What you need to do is remove these 2 16 millimeter bolts and then just lower down the shield and take it out of the way. Next thing you want to do is you want to grab some kind of penetrating fluid, and you're going to spray the clamp nuts right here. I've already sprayed them, but as you can see, this is not a treated steel, so it does rust. So you're going to spray those, and then you're also going to spray the 4 nuts on the catalytic converter. And what that'll do is that'll soak in, and it'll help you release any stubborn or frozen bolts or nuts. So now you're going to take your 3/8 13 millimeter socket and ratchet, and you're going to go ahead and lefty-loosey or counterclockwise and loosen both of these. Sometimes they can be very stubborn, sometimes you won't even be able to get them off. In the case that you can't break it loose, you can take a Ziz wheel and you're just going to cut a line across the whole thing. Careful not to cut into the exhaust, but just very slowly cut a line across it, because you're going to end up replacing this with a new factory one, or if you're going aftermarket like I am, you're going to have different clamps anyways. So yeah, just cut a line right here, and when you get through it evenly, it's going to snap and you'll be able to remove it. Now I may have spoke too soon, but we don't want to fully remove this yet. We just want it loose like this. We want to leave it there because as we loosen the stuff up front, we're going to want it to hold it up for us. So what I do is I use a different combination of things for every one of these nuts, so I'll kind of let you guys know as I figure it out. Usually goes different every time. So this time on the one farthest to the back, I have a long 16 millimeter ratchet, and it takes quite a bit of pressure because usually these are rusted. So you just got to really pull on it. Sometimes the stud will want to spin. That's okay. In my opinion, you should replace these studs anyways because they do get rusty, and if you ever have to service it again, you know, you want it to be as easy as possible. Now once we get all the nuts off, and if there are any studs left in there, I'm just going to take a pair of vice grips and clamp down on them, get them to spin, and then I'll take those out as well and replace those. Now for the bottom one towards the front of the engine, I'm using the same wrench. I'm just coming from the top of the subframe this time and loosening it that way. Now for the top back nut, I'm going to use the same ratchet, the same setup. I already broke it loose, but what I might do is I might grab a shorter ratchet and it'll give me more room to work right here. Next thing you want to do is you want to remove your airbox. In this case I have an aftermarket one. Yours is going to be the same process basically. There's just going to be a big box right here, and there's going to be a nut or a Torx bolt right here. Just release that Torx bolt, release this connector, and then you're going to take some pliers and disconnect this clamp right here and pull it off. And then there's going to be some tubing right here. You just take the cover off and unclip the tubing, and then you're just going to pull the airbox up. It's going to come up off of this and this right here, and you just pull it up and work it out of there. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take my airbox out, and that'll give us room to put the ratchet and an extension to the last nut. Now once the airbox was removed, what I did is I took a really long ratchet to give me some leverage, and probably a 10-inch extension, and then my 16 millimeter socket. And what I did is I went in between these two coolant hoses right here, and my extension ended up about right here, you know, just the perfect spot. So it may take a couple different combinations of extensions. I'm not sure what you have, but you want it about right here, and then you'll have plenty of room to break it loose and get it off of there. Alright, so we're about to take the front pipe out. So what we're going to do is we're going to loosen these 13 millimeter bolts right here and take them out. Make sure that your connector is hanging down for the first oxygen sensor, and we're going to come back here, slide this sleeve either forward or backwards, I can't remember, but you slide it to where this will drop down, and then you know you're holding the exhaust up at this point, and then you just pull the exhaust to the left off of these studs, and then you pull it back towards you and just wiggle it out of there. Be careful, you don't want to bend the harness too much for the oxygen sensor, otherwise it could possibly damage it. So at this point I'm just going to remove it. Alright, I now have the catalytic converter or downpipe out. What I did is I pulled it off the studs like I said, and then I pulled it towards me a little bit, and the oxygen sensor naturally is pointed about this direction. And what I did is I brought it about right here, twisted it this way so that the sensor was pointing basically horizontal, and you know, it fell out pretty easily. Now you're gonna have your old gasket right here. Just remember how it goes. You got this little tab right here, and it's gonna be on the bottom, and it points towards the turbo. So go ahead and take that off, replace it with a new one. You never want to reuse this. And then, like I said, this isn't 100% necessary. You don't have to replace the studs, but I will be. I'm just going to take some vice grips, grab right here where there's no threads, break them loose, and take them out. As you can see, my top one came out, So obviously I'm going to be replacing that one. Okay, and then you see this little bracket right here that holds the arms. You're going to have to take this off and transfer it over. So what I do is I take some silicone spray and I wiggle this around while I'm spraying. I get it inside the connection on both sides, over here and right here. And what that'll do is it'll make it really slippery. And then it takes a lot of effort, but you got to pull it off. You got to pull it off of the hangers. And then just take note of which direction this is. You kind of got the curved side up top, and then you just spray the new one with some silicone spray on the hangers and slip it right on. And then for the oxygen sensor, I do kind of the same thing I did with the pose catalytic converter sensor. I just take my 20, I think it's a 22, let me see. Yeah, I take my 22 wrench, stick it on there, lefty-loosey or counterclockwise, and break it loose. And then I keep this towards the front of the vehicle when I'm transferring things over, just so I don't get the oxygen sensors mixed up. Now the last step is to remove the resonator and muffler combination. What you're gonna need is this special tool right here. It's not very expensive, it's probably about $30. But if you don't have this, you're really gonna be struggling to do this part. So what it does is it goes just like that on the hanger, and you squeeze the handle and it pushes the hanger through the rubber. So there's gonna be, I think, a total of 5 of them. There's gonna be one right here, another one right here, one in the middle, one in the back, and another one in the back. So once you push all those through, the exhaust is just going to fall down, so be ready to catch it. And the last thing I would recommend is to put some anti-seize lubricant on the threads of the O2 sensors. It doesn't take a lot. I just took the brush out, dabbed my finger on it, and just rubbed it around the threads. You don't want to get any of it on the sensor portion.